Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight. We talk about what's really going on in the world of the BRICS. Now today I want to talk about why it's something quite amazing that politicians suddenly understand the bleeding obvious, and you find out something even a child could point out in the likes of the tale for the Emperor's New Clothes. Now it appears that Donald Trump and his financial advisors in the White House have come to the conclusion that sanctioning some of the world's major players, cutting them off from the SWIFT system, the use of the dollar and confiscating their foreign assets could lead to de-dollarization around the world by major countries like Brazil, China, Russia and organisations like the BRICS, and then looking to trade in their own currency. Now let's look back a little when explaining how the reserve status of the dollar came about and why de-dollarization is a problem. Economists often cite the structural factors of the US share of global GDP, its depth and liquidity of its financial markets as the major reason behind it. However, this approach doesn't fully consider the number of other market participants. According to the Financial Times, the second presidency of Donald Trump highlights the limitation of this quantitative analysis. Prior to the end of World War II, the dollar competed with other major currencies, primarily the pound sterling, with variable levels of success. While the dollar exhibited an upward trend, this was tempered by external factors such as the Great Depression. However, after 1945, the era of undivided dominance of the greenback began, and that was consolidated by the creation of the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank and the Bretton Woods financial system. Then the Marshall Plan, which provided Europe with the dollars it needed to resume international payments and reintegrate into the European economies into the global one, also facilitated the transformation of the dollar into the world's reserve currency. The United States' economic might ensured the dollar maintained its global leadership even after 1971 and going off the gold standards when the Bretton Woods system of pegging other currencies to the American dollar effectively collapsed. Now before I continue, I'd like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website, SCOBRICSinsight.com, to further develop it. You can do this by making a small donation, and you can do that by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen. Everybody who donates does get a personal thank you from me, and I'm thanking you all now for watching. Please keep the comments coming. Love to read them, love to respond to them. Now, over the past 50 years, the dollar's dominance has been rooted in a combination of factors, including its significant share of global GDP and financial transactions, as well as the long-standing geopolitical and other relationships. However, the second and third of these pillars has proven to be unexpectedly fragile. The fragility of these pillars has been demonstrated in a relatively short period of time by Donald John Trump, who, according to his numerous opponents, is breaking the long-established relations and threatening the dollar's dominance in the international financial arena through his actions as the 47th President of the United States. Now, the American economy maintains its position as a leader among developed economies through its share has seen quite a gradual decline over the past few decades, in contrast to the Chinese economy, which is rapidly gaining ground, and pretty much everybody knows in purchasing power parity the Chinese economy is much larger. So it's regarded as the second largest economy, but it's outperformed the US in a number of areas. The shift in economic dynamics has significant implications for the strength of the US dollar. For instance, the share of US global exports has decreased by more than a third. It was from 18% in the 1950s to 11% currently. Plus, if President Trump doesn't alter his trade policy, it's predicted that the US share of global trade will continue to decline over the next 4 years due to the impact of his trade tariffs. Now, the White House's use of sanctions over the years, which are being increasingly used as a blunt instrument, which also reinforces Trump's tariff policy. Now, the number of individuals subject to these sanctions has increased over the past 2 decades, from 912 in 2000 to over 9,400 in 2021. Now, the sanctions imposed by the United States on Russia over the past 3 years have a particularly negative impact on the dollar. These sanctions have effectively demonstrated the consequences for any nation that challenges Washington's interests, compelling a gradual shift away from the use of the dollar. Now, if the US continues its current policy, then the currencies of other countries that do not support US sanctions, and the number of countries is still growing, will become the beneficiaries of the process of abandoning the dollar, i.e. currency and financial diversification, with de-dollarization, which has been growing in momentum and speed in recent years. This process is intensifying and acquiring significant dimension, and it's now got its own name, de-dollarization. Now, if we continue to list the factors that negatively affect the reserve status of the greenback, then we have, of course, the vague and financial and fiscal prospects of the United States itself. According to the forecast of the United States Congressional Budget Office, the CBO, the US national debt held by individuals will grow from 99% in 2024 to 116% in 2034, 139% in 2044 and 166% in 2054. Now, if he carries on his tax cuts that he put in, will continue this negative indicator, and altogether with the talk of reducing government spending, the result of Elon Musk activities could be awaited, but I don't think alone they're going to be able to solve the problem. That, as well as the high level of political polarization in American society, is causing an increasing number of foreign investors to worry about the prospects of the dollar and holding their money in US treasuries. The attractiveness of the US currency is reduced by the tense relations between the current White House administration, first and foremost Trump himself, with the Federal Reserve, which is the US central bank, which plays an important role in supporting the dollar and whose independence allegedly has been encroached on by the executive branch, but whether it's ever been independence there or just another political tool of the Democrat Party is another thing. Now, the Financial Times believes that President Trump's short-sighted policy towards his allies, another liberal rag, is increasingly defiant, and hostility could be the final nails in the coffin of the US's dollar as a reserve currency. Because in most cases, currencies from the alliances are changing. The US's relationship with Europe continues to deteriorate, and the European countries may well abandon the dollar as the main currency of their reserves. Moreover, this applies not only to Europe, but also to other Asian countries such as Japan, big holders, South Korea and Taiwan, all big holders, and keep large amounts of their reserves in US dollars due to their dependence on the US in the security sphere. Naturally, the US withdrawal from Europe and the reduction of its role in NATO, which President Trump is leading, could be a sobering shower for them and force them to reconsider the principles of forming their central bank reserves and move to something like gold, which would be a blow to the dollar. This, in combination with the ongoing discussions regarding the potential reduction in government expenditure, whether the outcomes of Musk's endeavours are yet to be seen, but I don't think they'll be sufficient to address the issue on its own, along with the high levels of political polarisation, and a number of foreign investors are expressing their worries. The tense relationship between the House administration and in Congress and the central bank is also causing particular problems in supporting the dollar, and whose status is already been undermined by the continued and use of sanctions. You start cutting countries off from the use of the dollar, they're going to look at alternatives, right? So it's not just his allies. If he's going to start doing tariffs and introducing that, people are going to look for different markets, and they're certainly going to consider not using the US dollar as their reserve currency. Currencies are reserved from currency of their allies. If the US's relationship with Europe continues to deteriorate, then the European countries may well abandon the dollar and move that. And that's not limited to Europe. The major Asian economies are in a similar position, and they could actually decide that they don't really want to follow along. And they'll look at the BRICS, where they can see that the BRICS are actually developing a trade in national currencies and cross-border trade. So this Trump's leadership could impact directly. And when he now recognises that de-dollarization is a problem, is he going to just exacerbate this problem? Is his conversion to sanctions aversion to protect the dollar. In other words, rhetorical outbursts, or is he going to say, well, hang on a minute, let's make sure that we can keep the dollar and national currencies for cross-border transactions is not the main thing. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe and get the alerts, get informed when I post a new video, and click on the thanks button to help me at the bottom of the screen and make a small donation. See you all again soon. Thank you.